Back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. We're going to cover Big Ten Media Day today. So the preseason media poll came out with Rutgers checking in at number 9 in the preseason media poll. Greg Schiano spoke to the media today, and we have an update on the recruiting barbecue visit this weekend on Saturday. It's going to be at Schiano's house. A lot of big names that are going to be there from the 26th class. We'll have all that and more, but first, we are presented to you once again by Night and Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot, one-of-a-kind products. The temperature's rising. There's no better time to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, a picnic in the park, or simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit their website and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. This is a Night and Day shirt. Use our promo code Rutgers Rivals to get 10% off your purchase. You can use that anytime. It's not just a one-time usage or your first time. Shop now and keep chopping. All right, let's first start with this Big Ten media poll, because I think we all kind of understood that this was a very advantageous schedule for Rutgers. But when you actually go down and look at where teams are ranked preseason versus who are playing Rutgers, it's a pretty favorable schedule. So Rutgers is the only team in the entire now 18-team Big Ten that does not have to play one of the projected top 5 teams in the conference this year. And the top 5 in order is Ohio State, it's Oregon, it is Penn State, it is Michigan, and it's Iowa. So those are the top 5 teams according to the media. Rutgers is able to avoid all of them. In the past few, since they joined the Big Ten, it was a foregone conclusion you were playing the top 3 or 3 of the top 5 that are in that list. Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. The first year they don't have to play either of them. And if you just go down the schedule, a lot of their tough games are at home. You get Wisconsin at home, or you get Wisconsin at home, you get Washington at home. Probably the toughest in-conference game this whole year is Nebraska on the road. Nebraska is probably going to start a true freshman quarterback this year. They've overhauled a lot of their offense. So what did you think of the Big Ten media poll? Did it surprise you? Where do you think it was fair to Rutgers where they're projected this season?
Well, I think it's stupid that the Big Ten technically doesn't have a media poll to start with.
That's right. This is the Cleveland.com unofficial one. Yeah.
Which is insane at this point. Just get one of every writer. It's not that hard. But regardless, I actually a little shocked at Ohio State over Oregon. I think Oregon might actually win the Big Ten this year. As crazy as it might sound, the newcomer. They have the best quarterback in the conference too. But it's going to be interesting to see how that top half unfolds. But regardless, I mean, Rutgers at 9, I think that's kind of where we had them sitting as a fan base. I did a poll for, I forget, I think it was Cole Sports or something like that. One of those smaller outlets that covers the Midwest, covers the Big Ten. And I had Rutgers at 9. So I was like, oh, all right, cool. That's I guess I know what I'm talking about for a change. But it is going to be tough. Some of these games, like Wisconsin at home, is not going to be easy. I know they didn't look too good last year, but they'll be a lot better this year. Nebraska away is going to be very, very tough. But like you said, freshman quarterback. Rutgers defense is known as having a very good defense, and they're all returning veterans for the most part. So they should be able to rattle him a little bit. And then Washington's the tough one. I know that's a home game. It's pretty early in the season, which is nice. I think that's the blackout game, if I recall. But
it is the blackout game. It's on a Friday night.
Yes.
Washington came in at number 10 in the conference.
A little shocked by that one. Yeah, I didn't because they lost, 75 to 80% of their team? Or contributors?
They lost their coaching staff. They lost their top 10 rank, or the top 10 pick quarterback. They lost 3 receivers to the NFL. A bunch of guys left in the transfer portal after the season too. So it's essentially like a new program there. There are some holdovers, but and Jed Fish, he came from Arizona. He wasn't able to convince. He's a great coach, but he wasn't able to convince some of his top guys to come over. Like they have a receiver at Arizona that's probably going to be a first-round pick next year. I think his last name's McMillan, if that sounds right.
Sounds about right.
They're gonna take a step back, but. If you're talking about the teams Rutgers does have to play, they got to play USC, who's ranked 6th. That's on the road. You got to play Wisconsin, who's ranked 7th at home. You got to play Nebraska on the road, who's ranked 8th. Washington at home, ranked 10th. Maryland, I believe, is on the road. They're ranked 11th. They got to play Minnesota, who's ranked 12th. They got to play Illinois, who's ranked 13th at home,
Mm-hmm.
and they got to play UCLA at home, who's ranked 15th, and they got to play Michigan State on the road, who's ranked 16th. I think Michigan State being ranked that low is a bit surprising, just given, I think, the new coach they hired there, I forget his first name, but Smith, who came over from Oregon State.
Jonathan.
I think he's a better coach. Yep, yeah. Jonathan Smith. But it's a very favorable schedule for sure.
3 new head coaches. That's always going to play a factor because that coaching matters at the end of the day. When you have a veteran that's been at Rutgers for God knows how long. I don't even know how long Schiano's been there now. It's got to be like 16, 15 years, something like that.
Yep, that's about right.
But yeah, no, I mean, they're set up pretty nicely. I know that some of these names, like you said, USC, Wisconsin, Nebraska are all ahead of them. Washington's right behind them. Maryland's right behind that. Like, they're all sandwiched together. But you, like you said before, you don't have to play that top tier. That's huge for Rutgers' chances of winning 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe.
Yeah, and if you look at how the votes came in, there's 2 teams received first place votes. That was Ohio State, who received 21 of the 27 votes, and Oregon received the other 6. In terms of just raw points, Ohio State got 480 points. Oregon got 448. Then I'd say there's a teardrop. Penn State got 418. Michigan got 411. I'd say that's a tier of teams. And then Iowa, you might make its own tier, or maybe the start of a tier between USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And then there's, a very large tier in the next grouping. So I think you got to kind of look at it like that, where we're avoiding like the top 2 tiers of the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, that's huge. I know Jake Butt just said it on BTN. He said that Rutgers is the most underrated team in the Big Ten this year, or right now, I think the wording was. But they have a shot at doing something crazy this year that they probably haven't seen since 06, that 06 season. Now, I don't think they're going to go out and like destroy USC and get like a signature win there, but I think they're going to put up a damn good fight. USC is missing people too. Like some of these programs, like USC, Maryland, they're integrating new quarterbacks this offseason or this season in general too. So I know Rutgers is as well, but there's familiarity there between their quarterback and their OC. So I just think that this has a chance to be a really good season, and you kind of see people talking about it now for a change because football is right around the corner.
Yeah, and it segues nicely into our next topic is kind of what Schiano said today before Jake Butt gave his comment about being the most underrated program or underrated team this year in the Big Ten. I wish that there was some juicy new details that Schiano unveiled, but he was fairly Schiano-y at his presser today. Talked a lot about, the culture of Rutgers, what FTC means, what it, why they focus so much on family. He talked about there's a question about recruiting and how he doesn't really pay attention to the rankings. Somebody asked, how do you keep some of these top guys at home like you've been able to do recently? And basically, told the reporter he doesn't follow statistics or he doesn't follow recruiting rankings. And then he brought up Max Milton, how he was the 22nd ranked player in the state of New Jersey, according to the recruiting services. And then he was the 43rd best player in the world, according to the draft. And I think, sure, there's plenty of examples where guys who, are ranked, as a 3-star, a low 4-star end up going, higher than expected in the draft. But recruiting is an inexact science. It's guys who get hurt. There's guys who, transfer. There's so many more factors to it than just, where a guy's ranked. Oh, he's a 5-star. He has to be a first-round pick to really pan out. That's just not realistic. So I didn't think everybody can say, that about recruiting rankings from one time or another. Is there anything Schiano said to you that really stood out from his panel today?
Nothing too crazy. Going in regards to the recruiting ranking thing, I forget the exact number, but I did the math, or I found a research paper that did the math for us. And I think it was something like the team who has the higher ranked kids at the end of the day wins the game 83% of the time. So, I mean, and it does matter whether you want to admit it or not. But, I don't think he said anything too crazy. They asked him about that. They asked him about how his NFL ties and playing on the West Coast. He went from Tampa to Seattle during his NFL career as a head coach, and that's going to be the same thing as Rutgers going to USC this year, especially at 11 p.m. I know they have some sleep specialists that they've hired to try to help the guys acclimate to that time zone difference. Because I mean, the game's not going to end till what, 2 in the morning. So
Yeah, 2:30.
yeah, that's going to be rough. But yeah, nothing too crazy. It's very basic, very generic, and it's probably a big reason of why I didn't go out there too. But yeah, raved about his coordinators, said he could never had a staff he could trust so much in his life. Emphasized how he's involved with special teams as well, and basically that's kind of it. It's nothing too crazy. He referenced the Big East a lot, which I thought was kind of cool, the old Big East when it was actually good. And now it's just a basketball conference. So yeah, it's kind of same old Greg. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, and to that point, the whole traveling out west, the mayor of Piscataway has a podcast. I think it's called Eyes on Piscataway.
Yes.
And they actually filmed like a half-hour segment at Rutgers interviewing Greg Schiano. And that's one of the things he asked, was kind of like walking through what that was going to be like. And Greg said they expect to be done that game around 2:30. They will board the bus around 3:30, or they'll fly out, or they'll board the bus around 3:30, and they'll fly out that night on a chartered jet and expect to be back around like midday the following day. Which that sounds like a total
Insane.
nightmare day of travel. Imagine just like, bashing your body around for, 3.5 hours, and then just like having to do all that in the middle of the night. It's a rough day. But yeah, not a whole lot of, big quotes out of Greg. Somebody asked specifically about Kyle Monungai and, what's special about him as a player. And he said, the quotes that he said about Kyle were, he's a very decisive runner. He's very patient, but when he decides, he's hitting a hole, he does it violently, and he gets harder to tackle as the game goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always falling forward. He said about 90% of the time, Kyle Monungai falls forward, which is what you want to see out of a running back. And that's honestly the thing that reminds me most about Ray Rice, is that Ray Rice always did that too.
Mm-hmm.
Ray would take, hit behind the line, and it should be no gain, but it's 2 yards because he's just able to like fall forward and get those basically like hidden 2 yards. And Monungai does the same thing. Which is, you would think, an inherent feature of most running backs, but it's not. There's plenty of guys who just like cannot push forward. They just kind of get tackled backwards and lose those like body length yards pretty consistently. So
yeah, no, I mean, we know this. Kyle's had a hell of a career already. We were talking about off the pod. Jalen Berger just transferred for his third time. He's going to be entering year 5. In his 4 seasons so far, he has 1,100 yards. Kyle's last season, this past fall, has 1,200 plus yards. It's just, and it goes back to the recruiting ranking thing too, because Jalen Berger was a high-ranked 4-star, and Kyle Monungai was just a 3-star that they took a week before signing day. So yeah, it is crazy. He does have a mini Ray Rice on his hands, and they're gonna use him a lot this year, I would assume.
Oh yeah. The offense will for sure run through go through the running game. I don't think he will lead the Big Ten in rushing again. And that's not like saying that it's a pretty obvious thing that it's really tough to do in the first place. But I do think we're going to see Sam Brown be more involved than he was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was 100% recovered from his injury. And I honestly don't think that they want to just run a guy, 25, 30 times a game.
Yeah.
If you could have, Monungai take 18 to 20 carries and Sam Brown take, 8 to 10, I think that's kind of the distribution you want to see. So it would surprise me if Monungai got the same workload as last year. I think a lot more of it will go on to Sam Brown, and that will create a pretty incredible 1-2 punch at the running back position.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't count out Ja'Shawn Benjamin. We saw some flashes of him last season, and he's a great pass catcher. Maybe a third down type back. Just need someone to get what was that one? He had like a 25-yard reception for a touchdown, right? Against who the hell was that against?
I think that was against Temple, and he got his clock cleaned.
Yeah. But he caught it, held on to it. So, I wouldn't count him out yet. And then they have this group of running backs coming in too. That's going to play a factor a little bit. Now they're not going to get a bunch of snaps between Ed Greer, Gabriel Winovich, and four-star Antoine Raymond, who just enrolled in April, May, something like that. So it's kind of building a little bit of a pipeline at running back that you're going to see some stars going forward. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited.
Yeah, same. Is there anything else that was said at Big Ten Media Day that you wanted to cover? Because I have one thing. You said,
no.
Yeah. So I guess Schiano spoke to the local media at Big Ten Media Day, and this is from Brian Fonseca. So just kind of reading the tweet title. Basically, it sounds like Schiano has said that the indoor practice facility will be taking a back seat moving forward in terms of fundraising, and that those funds will be directed towards NIL. And he can't take that money and put it somewhere, but he can say to his, the donor base, hey, this is more valuable for us right now than a facility is getting money directed towards NIL. And the recruiting wins recently have kind of shown he's probably been doing that for a while now. You don't have a class as good as we currently have if you're not, at least dabbling in NIL, in my opinion.
100%.
So this doesn't surprise. I know that when he came on, that was a big part of his contract, was like a guarantee that will be done by a certain time. But so much has changed since December of 2019 when he signed that contract that and Schiano had said that in his speech or his at the Big Ten Media Day. Somebody asked a question about things that have changed since he started, and he's like, really, it's like a totally new job every 6 months. Like that's how much change that we've seen recently. And I agree. It's like a seismic amount of change every single offseason, every single season, with new rule changes, with the advent of NIL, transfer portal. It's been a very transformative time in college football, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So, for priorities to have changed that much, it might on the outset or on the from a high level seem jarring, but in reality, it's just what the contract he signed in December of 2019 doesn't necessarily apply to the reality of July of 2024.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I've reported something a little bit different than that recently. After talking to people within the athletic department, their entire focus is on the football facility. Now, Pat Hobbs previously has stated that he wants to get a plan out there and rolling by this fall. Is that still the plan? To be determined. I think we'd have to talk to Pat in order to get an official word on that. And that's it. It's going to be. Although, what was the other thing? The other thing was that the football facility is going to be the first thing they put into the ground. Now, all other projects are on pause now. That doesn't mean that the baseball facility being built at Middlesex College is on pause. Totally different scenario there. But they want to get a lacrosse practice field down at the very least. And I think Greg kind of wants that too as well, just because he can kind of tell lacrosse, hey, don't tear up my field, go over there. Yep. So I know that the first part of that plan, or that facility plan, was to put the turf down itself and put maybe just a temporary fence around it and then build a stadium around that eventually. So I could see that one happening probably down the line, but it sounds like football is the facility still kind of on. We've tweeted out the renderings. The renderings have came out. They've given the donors several packets saying like, hey, this is how much money we need. They have the state funding half. They need, I think it was $75 million or something like that for the rest of it, the remainder, and then a $5 million sponsor, whoever the hell wants to sponsor it, whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward, especially this upcoming fall, because Pat Hobbs is probably going to do an interview sooner or later, and it's going to be probably his first question asked.
Yeah, definitely. Other than maybe the master plan, where that is,
to be determined. Master plan, yeah.
So that's kind of everything from Big Ten Media Day. The players are speaking later today. They'll have two different times to speak to the media. One is just an actual press conference kind of situation. Then they'll have like a media scrum kind of thing where they have like a panel talking live on Big Ten Network. So later in the day, you'll be able to watch that on Big Ten Network, like I said. Let's talk about this.
Nothing to talk about today. Like, it's like I wish he said something juicy, like, hey, like our rival Maryland. They made us a rival. Let's talk about getting a trophy or something. I don't know. Give me something juicy to work with.
Yeah, these you're basically never going to hear anything juicy
I know.
from a Rutgers player or from Schiano. Um, it's just he just is that he's got that Bill Belichick kind of gene in him where it's just
Even he
all
makes
about the
some
team,
funny
all about not making
comments.
waves.
Like Bill Belichick has some moments though where it's funny and it's like ha ha ha. Like look at him dating a 21-year-old. Like
Yeah, that's wild. And
yeah,
the
it's
funny thing is,
crazy.
like the picture from TMZ, that
Oh, the
was like the
Rutgers. Yeah.
first. Yeah, he had a Rutgers hoodie on.
Yeah.
No doubt
Jeez.
from
Her.
Stevens in some way. Yeah, or maybe her. I doubt it was from her, but
College student. Jeez. Oh, what a world. Anyway.
what a world. Let's talk about this recruiting barbecue though.
Yes.
Um,
Exciting
it's a
news.
big recruiting weekend this upcoming Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you currently have about a dozen names that are confirmed who are going to be there, and almost all these guys are like top tier targets for the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah.
They're all offerees. A good deal of them are 4 stars. Do you want to just kind of go down the list? We talked about some of this list in the past, but
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now on our boards. It's down a little bit. I think there it is. So yeah, previously this used to just be a barbecue event. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos in the past where they do cornhole on the field, set up a bunch of tables on the field, and everyone would just kind of hang out on the field. Or they would go to that recruiting lounge up there in like the middle section of the student section and hang out there. But this is now officially going to be at Greg Schiano's house. They're gonna have a pool party. The logistics behind it, I don't know how that works or whatever. But regardless, going down the list, Gavin Sidwar, Rutgers quarterback commit, the only commit in the 2026 class currently. Also, I should have said this before saying Gavin's name, but almost all the 2025 kids are going to be there as well. I just didn't list them because it's whatever. Like they're all going to be there for the most part. Maybe some of the out of state kids are going to have some issues traveling getting there, but almost all of them, all 29 commitments should be in attendance. But second on the list is one I'm keeping a close eye on. It's Ladarius Pryor. He's a Florida running back coming up from, I believe it's in the Orlando area. And Rutgers has done notoriously well there. They landed a couple guys from Florida at running back recently, and Jay Benjamin and sort of a Florida guy and Antoine Raymond, technically Canadian, but played down in Florida. And they were doing good with Kayvon Mason too, and they probably could have landed him if they wanted. So this is going to be a kid to keep a close eye on. He's not ranked currently, but he should be ranked shortly. But he has a lot of Power 5 offers. He's got the typical ones, the Florida ones that you want to see most kids have, whether it be UCF, South Florida, Florida State, Florida Atlantic, meaning that all these schools are going to try to keep him to stay home. But yeah, he's one to keep a close eye on because he's very close with Demir Shaw, he was telling me. Should have an article out on him probably in the next couple of days. Who else? Tyzier Carter at wide receiver. He's a kid we mentioned a couple times now. Told me the other day Rutgers and Penn State are his top two, coming up from Virginia. Just a really talented prospect. I think he's number 158 in the country, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Very talented, very good relationship with the staff. His older brother, DeQuise Carter, is a guy we mentioned in the past, former Fordham wide receiver that actually played under Demir Shaw when Demir was Fordham's wide receivers coach. So there is a little bit of a relationship. Offensive line, they got 4 people coming in. Brady Beckenhouse, coming down from Massachusetts. Queel Cox coming down from New York. Marlon Bright from DePaul Catholic, and Kai Pritchard from Donovan Catholic. Out of that group, Queel Cox is one that I've been told that he's not nearing a commitment, but could be potentially pushed into a commitment if just pushed a little bit, to be honest. Christian Brothers Academy, some of you might remember it. Stevie Scott, former Rutgers running back, commits from there. I think there was a wide receiver in the recent class that was from there as well. But who else? Kai Pritchard is one that is really very talented kid. I think he's number 189 in the country. 4-star kid, number 2 in the state this year. Donovan Catholic, they just got Michael Thomas III, who's probably going to be on campus as well. Teammate of his. I know he's technically listed as a tackle, but 6'4", 275 tells me probably more of a guard. But either way, I mean, very talented prospect. Came to campus when was it? When did he come to campus? I think he came to campus in May for one of the camps. and got to work with Pat Flaherty. Very high on Pat Flaherty. Who else am I missing? Jermaine Kinsler, the nephew of, why can't I think of his name? Latish Kinsler, who's the advisor / president of CEO of football for Lifestyle Sports Agency. Marlon Bright's also a part of the Lifestyle Sports Agency. Kaj Sanders is part of the Lifestyle Sports Agency. Who's the Jared Gordon? I think it was 2025 commit, part of Lifestyle Sports Agency. And kind of see where that one's going. I think Rutgers has a good shot there. He's got every offer in the book. And then athletes, Elias Koch, Amari Saab, Chris Hewitt, Nakir Helton. I don't think they land a commitment at all this weekend, but it wouldn't shock me either. But they have some interesting names coming to campus, some highly ranked kids, and the list is going to continue to grow. That's not just that's just a running list for now. We didn't get the official list and official word of who's going to be there, who's not. This is just a couple of names that I've been able to talk to in the past couple of days and have confirmed they will be in attendance. Man, that was a mouthful.
Yep, and I'm sure this list will continue to grow, but really solid grouping together with the 25 class. Those guys are going to be, the biggest cheerleaders in the room too. Having players that are, fully bought in, especially that are still in, I guess they're not. Yeah, they're still in high school. Sorry. I always get the recruiting calendars kind of mixed up, especially as things are getting sped up. These 25s are going to be high school seniors next year. 26s will be high school juniors next year. 24s just got out of high school. Explaining that to myself more so than the audience who probably knew that already. But it's going to be a fun time, I'm sure. And I'm sure there'll be some juicy recruiting news to come out of the weekend as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they do this going forward, because next year the dead period is no longer having an opening at the end of July. That's been like a thing for, I want to say, at least 5-6 years now. But their dead period next year goes from June 23rd to July 31st. So the entire month of July and that last week in June, no recruiting news whatsoever. So woohoo, what's to talk about on the pod for a whole month? And
the recruiting calendar has drastically shrunk for Rutgers, at least this year, because they got all their damn commits in the span of 8 days.
Yeah, that too.
So normally that would be like our content schedule for the summer, but not this year. So that's kind of why you've seen less episodes from us, is because there's less to talk about. Not that there's not the excitement for the seasons to start, but we don't want to just put something out for you guys either.
Yep.
But later this week, we will be putting out another episode. We asked you guys for some submissions for the fan stories project that we were talking about previously. So we are going to be recording that shortly with Richie and I stories from some of the staff at TKR and some of your stories as well. So appreciate everybody who has submitted a story for that. And I'm excited for you guys to hear some. Some of these stories are fantastic. They're really funny. Others are fairly, bland, but that's kind of the swath of the fan base. Is you're not going to have this crazy story of how you became a fan always, but some people do.
One quick thing before we end up signing off today. Roster limits are about to be in place. 105 is the number for football. That does not include walk-ons. It sounds like the walk-on will be dead. It's just going to be 105 scholarship players, and that's it. And then baseball. I didn't think I'd see some baseball tweets from Pete Thamel, but we did. 34 scholarships for baseball, and that's interesting because they're splitting. I don't even know what the exact number was currently, but I know there was always talk about how this baseball player is better, so he gets a little more, and this one gets a little more. But they're just going to put 34 scholarships flat. How that works with Title IX, I don't know, so don't ask me. So stop asking me on the boards too, because I have no fucking clue. I'm not in Congress. I'm not listening on all these things. It seems like it's a insane just debate between schools, presidents, ads, commissioners, the coaches, maybe even, and then congressmen, because they know what's best for the sport, right? Okay, I'm done. Rant over.
All right. Well, thanks once again for listening. For me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.